into action.
So Spav, what are we doing today?
Well, today we have a Top 10 Tuesday. And it is the Top 10 Tuesday, Top 10 Reasons to Play Legacy in Magic the Gathering.
That's exciting. Yeah. Wow. I have been playing Magic with you for probably about a year now, a little over a year.
Yep.
And Legacy is all I know. But I enjoy it quite a bit. I know you've shown me a little bit about the other, and told me a little bit about the other types. But just from the little bit I know, I think Legacy's great. Yeah,
Legacy's my preferred format. I've been playing Magic since 2003, so not, the old times, and I prefer this format to others, and some of the reasons you'll see why here in the top 10.
All right, cue music.
Action.
All right, so here we are, Top 10 Tuesday, the top 10 reasons to play Legacy Magic the Gathering. Now first, what are the other types, in case our viewers don't know?
So there's constructed formats and limited formats. And with the constructed formats, you build a deck and play it. Limited formats, you open new cards and build a deck and play it.
Tell me about that.
And within the constructed, there's a lot of different formats. Standard is kind of the premier
standard
constructed format. Yeah, it's kind of the newer block sets, most of the new cards. And then there is something called Commander, where you have a 100 card deck and every single card you can only have one copy of. And you play with like a Commander card. Then there's Modern, which is kind of similar to Standard, but it goes a little bit further back. So you have a wider card pool. There's Vintage, which is all the high-powered cards from the first couple of sets and all the other cards. So there's a lot of like super expensive cards, really powerful cards. And then that's Legacy. And Vintage and Legacy are Eternal formats, so that's like they're all the cards. But Legacy has a separate banned list than Vintage. And yeah, you'll learn a little bit about it here a little bit more about it in our top 10 if it's a format that you're interested in playing or you're a long-time player yourself.
Yeah, I never really played Magic the Gathering before, and I found myself really enjoying it. For a lot of the reasons I think Spav's going to mention. I think it's really fun. If anybody wants to get into Magic the Gathering, I highly recommend it. It's a fun little pastime, and the art is pretty. I like collecting the cards, even if I don't play. I like to just collect the cards and look at the art or whatever silly flavor text is on there. I have a whole unicorn collection. Spav buys me unicorn. You might have seen in some of my mail openings, he buys me unicorn cards. But yeah, it's a fun hobby, and hopefully people watching, if it's something you want to get into, definitely think it's a lot of fun. All right, you ready for number one?
Yes.
Number one is Legacy is a wide open format.
So many decks are viable in Legacy. Now obviously there's kind of like a tier list of good decks, really good decks, consistent decks, but there's 50, 60, 70 different decks that people play and that have evolved over the years that you can bring to a Legacy tournament and have a shot to do well. There's a large card pool. So people are constantly coming up with new decks. They're tinkering around with older decks. They're smooshing decks together.
I think it's important to mention what a deck is. So there's all different types. Like I have like 3 or 4 decks of my own. Like for one, I have like slivers, and so there's all sorts of sliver cards out there. But I just pick and choose these ones and these ones and these ones, and so I've made a deck. It's not that you go to the store and you buy a deck. You buy the individual cards and you kind of construct a deck based on kind of like what's already out there. You just to form your own, but you do make your own decks. But it's really smart to just kind of use the guidance of what already exists.
Right. Yeah. You can kind of like take a look at some of the top decks and then tune it to the play style that you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's one of your top 10, but that it is very customizable. Like I have my sliver deck, and I want, this in here. I want more defense in my slivers. I want more offense in my slivers, and I can kind of customize the deck. I know that I just want to have slivers in it, but I can really customize it too, which is where the fun of trading cards is. It's not like, here's the cards, this is it, go play with that. It's totally customizable.
Right, and there's also a great thing that since a lot of these cards have been reprinted so many times, you can kind of choose the art that you want in the cards too, and that's a lot of fun.
There's a consistent metagame, number 2.
Yeah, number 2, the decks remain viable for a long time. So some of these decks have been around since the birth of the format.
And how old was that? How long?
So around when I started getting into the game, when I started playing this format, it was called Type 1.5, and then they changed that to Legacy in the like mid 2000s or so. And some of the decks that people play, they obviously have had upgrades and changes, especially the sideboard over time, but they're still viable. So once you kind of buy into the format, your deck's going to be useful for a while.
Yeah. It's not like something's going to go extinct or age out really fast, like a computer where you buy it and then there's the new best thing and then it's useless. So it's something, it has, it's legacy, that's what's in the name.
Right.
It's long lasting.
And there's not bannings every other week that are going to make your deck not viable. Mm-hmm. It really does take a lot for a card or a deck to kind of get on the Legacy player's radar. Recently there were a few bannings, and even the 3 cards that got banned, the decks were able to adapt and find alternate cards in order to fill those spaces.
And tell me more about like what banning is.
So at some point, specifically for Legacy, it's kind of like on the community to police cards that are problematic. Mm-hmm. And then they'll kind of complain and pester the Wizards overlords until they kind of decide to make a formal banning.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is too good or this is broken?
Yep, things like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's too good or it's broken and
or
really
overpowered.
Is overpowered. Okay. They didn't realize when they made it. It's so somebody's kind of abusing it what is the word I'm looking for? Just really exploiting it.
Right.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Right. So unlike other formats, like Standard, the new sets, when new sets are released, it's not going to automatically make your deck not useful. So that's definitely a benefit for playing Legacy.
Yeah, definitely. Number 3, a predictable metagame.
So having a predictable metagame, it allows you to learn your matchups. It allows you to kind of know what you're going up against and kind of know how to play against those types of decks. Especially in person, where you know what decks people bring, kind of what decks they own. It allows you to have a game plan against those types of players or those decks.
Yeah, like sometimes we'll be looking at a card, or like you'll be showing me a card and like, oh, this is good against the Doomsday deck, or because sometimes like when I'm playing, my Slivers or my Merfolk, and then there's certain decks of his that I play where I'm just obliterated against, and so knowing that, I could kind of predict what I should be up against, what my defense should be, or how I can react to that type of deck. It's not, totally Wild West. I know kind of what that deck is, and so I can kind of, predict what to do against it.
Yeah, that helps you figure out your sideboarding.
What's a sideboard?
The extra 15 cards that you get, and since the games are generally, you play best of 3 matches, after the first game you can switch cards from your sideboard in your main deck.
Yeah, it's 60 cards, isn't it?
60 or more.
60 or more, okay. So Legacy is 60 cards, and I typically do like 20 land. And there's other videos on how to, play Magic and such. We're just kind of here to promote Legacy. If you do want to play Magic to this type of, what would you say, type? Or this format of Magic?
Yep, so kind of once you learn the metagame, either the local metagame or the metagame online, you don't have to like reset every time new sets are released or every time new cards are, like available. So that's another benefit of playing Legacy.
Yeah, I know for me, I've only been able to play you because of the pandemic. The local stores in our area and such, they're not holding tournaments. But I'm a little nervous going out to someday I'm going to play somebody that's not you. But I do feel good that I know, like, oh, this is a burn deck. Okay, I know, what kind of that person's going to have. I have an idea of what they have. It's not just totally random. I can kind of predict a little bit.
Okay.
Number 4, obscure decks can become tier 1.
Right, so it just takes one or two new cards from a set to kind of bump the deck up from middle of the pack to top tier. You're always, when a new set's released, the Legacy players are always kind of like looking through to kind of see what's good or what cards can help what decks. And being part of that conversation kind of allows you to kind of be part of the group and learn what's going to be good when new things come out.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, both worlds, like just a couple of cards in your predictable deck can make it unpredictable. There's the offense and the defense of it. So you benefit both ways.
Yeah, and then especially in your local community, kind of playing an obscure deck can kind of give you kind of like an edge if nobody's planning for it. But also you kind of get known as the guy or gal that plays that deck, and that's a lot of appeal for Legacy 2 is to kind of have that attachment to like merfolk or slivers or goblins. So some other points are like hybrid decks are viable. There's one deck called Doomsday. There's another deck called Reanimator, and recently players have just smooshed those two decks together. So after, for one game, your deck can be like a control deck or an aggro deck, and then post sideboard, you're a combo deck all of a sudden. So kind of having that unknown factor is really useful in Legacy too.
Yeah, it's known with a little bit of unknown because both are still a benefit, really. Somebody might have a burn deck and then have a couple of other cards, or like the Doomsday deck, like you were saying, and it's still a Doomsday deck, but it's understandable like how it's different now.
Right. So
number 5, helpful and accepting community.
yeah, so Legacy, I think early in its life, it kind of had a stigma of kind of like snotty players. Like they have all the expensive cards, they have all the shiny cards and with signatures or alternate art. But recently, I think that's changed especially with the Discord groups and Reddit and a lot of the YouTubers and people writing articles. There's a lot of like helpful people and specialists for these deck archetypes that are willing to discuss and theory craft and answer all sorts of questions for players. So I really think that this is an accepting and helpful community, and I hope it grows as we evolve.
So where would you find these communities? I know you talked a little bit.
Yeah, so there's a lot of YouTubers that stream their games online. Reddit has a big Legacy community. And then if you search for specific Discord groups for Legacy decks, there are groups you can join, like Merfolk or Goblins, the Delver decks, the Doomsday, like Tin Fins decks. Like they all have Discords, they're active. They discuss Legacy. And they try to support each other by jumping in their streams on Twitch or commenting on their videos, all sorts of stuff. So then there's a lot of, I guess it's like community managed tournaments, especially in the last year. They've been playing by webcam, and there are groups that have that you can join and sign up for or participate in, where you can play other players from around the world. that that are competitive, and so I think it's larger than ever. None of this existed when the format first started, so it's great to see.
And so, are we talking? Is Legacy online too, or is it
Yeah,
just cards?
yes, yeah, that's one of the points here. But yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Number 6, allow use for proxies. That's important.
Yeah. So, since Wizards of the Coast has kind of let Legacy fall by the wayside a little bit, the stores and the player base have been more generally accepting of proxies, be it the gold border cards or art cards.
Oh, explain what a proxy is.
It's just a placeholder for a card.
Yeah, like we're playing, and then I'll be like, oh, there's like a little piece of paper, and it's a proxy for something else, and Spav will be like, oh, that card's like $300. So I'm like, oh, cool, let's just keep the paper version.
Yeah, so some players maybe they don't want to play with their expensive cards because they'll get damaged. Some players don't have access to the cards, or maybe like those cards are just in another one of their decks, and they don't want to take it out and put it in their other deck. So this is helpful to both test new decks and to allow access to cards that somebody might be gatekeeped from because of price.
Is there a limit to proxies?
So the stores in our area, at least I think it's 5 to 10 proxies, but there are other communities that don't mind any number of proxies. Because once you like kind of start building towards the deck, like you know you get the cheaper cards, but maybe the most expensive cards you gotta save up for a little bit. So that's where proxies are great.
Oh yeah, this. Number 7, online cards are cheaper.
Yeah, so a big boon in Legacy has been Magic the Gathering Online, where access to the cards either via a rental service or just purchasing them outright has become a lot cheaper. You can look at some of the Magic the Gathering sites to kind of compare the prices between the real life paper cards and the online cards, and it's a pretty startling difference. So if you are looking to get into Legacy, you might not be willing to jump all the way in and buy all the dual lands and the Force of Wills and the fetch lands. The Magic the Gathering Online is definitely your place. The cards, I guess they come in premium versions, foil as well. You don't have to collect more than 4 of them. They automatically they automatically kind of go in any deck you put them in, and you can test them out before you buy them in paper to make sure it's kind of the deck that you want that works for you.
So it's free to play online, isn't it?
So it's if you play in like a tournament or something that's got prize support, then you have to kind of buy the cards. You can play against other people kind of for free, but Magic the Gathering Online, you do have to buy the cards up front. They have another app, I guess a phone app. It's called Magic the Gathering Arena, where that's pseudo free to play.
I've heard of that.
Where they have like, you can collect the currencies by doing actions. But that doesn't include all of the Legacy staple cards.
Okay. So when you play online, do you collect like Legacy?
Yeah.
Play online.
There's different like they call them like challenges, or they have like larger tournaments, and there's like people who grind that all day to collect trophies, and I think the main format, you submit your deck and you kind of enter a group, and then you play 5 games, and then once you're 5-0, you get like some prizes. If you're 5-0, if you're like 4-1 or 3-2, then you don't get as much. But yeah, this isn't a Magic the Gathering online primer, but
No.
but it is healthy. It is a healthy format online. if that's something that you're looking to get into as well.
Yeah, everything we're saying pretty much is applicable to online too. Like maybe not this one. Number 8, there's a low buy-in for starter decks.
Right, so if you are looking to get into paper legacy and you don't have a lot of funds, there are options for decks that are cheaper. For example, we have a burn deck. It's pretty simple to play.
Oh yeah.
You can get it for around $100, but the standard burn deck, you're looking at maybe $350 to get like a kind of good quality burn deck.
I think, I just thought about this. It's almost like you have a car and you're like, oh, I want that part for my car, upgrade my car. It's like you want to like upgrade your deck sometimes. You have your base model, but then you want to, I can upgrade like this or this card or this card. But you can start out with your basic, model car, your basic model deck, and then you can, upgrade it from there.
Right. Another option for cheaper decks is called Oops, All Spells. And that's kind of like Dredgeless Dredge. And that's around $800. Death and Taxes, which is pretty popular right now, maybe $1,000, $1,200, because that's mono white. It doesn't need any dual lands. You can get a zombie deck for around $400 to $800, and then normal dredge will run you about $800, maybe $800 to $1,000.
What about my beloved slivers?
Slivers have gone up a little bit because of Commander. Some of the lands and the Aether Vials are a little expensive, but and then you might need dual lands and fetches, and then a version of Slivers runs Force of Will too, so it can get a little pricey. But you can also start accumulating some of the commons and uncommons that are in a lot of the popular decks for cheaper prices, and then proxy the more expensive cards.
Yeah, and just to see if it's something you enjoy doing, proxy some of those more expensive ones, and then eventually do those upgrades to your deck.
All right.
Number 9, port over decks from other formats.
Right. So if you are a modern or standard or commander player, oftentimes a lot of the decks do have legacy equivalents that work, just as fine with a couple of minor upgrades. Some of the examples include Burn or Red Deck Wins or Red Prison, Humans or Death and Taxes, Death's Shadow, Infect, Goblins, and Merfolk. I guess Slivers might too also have all kind of equivalents in Modern that you could port over to Legacy.
Without starting over.
With proxies, or with the dual lands and a couple other cards.
Yeah. So it's kind of compatible. I'd say almost compatible with other formats in some ways.
And also, if you're a commander player, a lot of the commander staples, especially the lands, are usable in Legacy as well. You might only have 1 or 2 copies of them, but there are decks that use those cards. A lot of those cards.
Are there certain cards? Because like when you look at a card, it's not like Legacy. It's just a Magic card. Are there certain cards that are Legacy only?
Well, a lot of the Legacy cards are Vintage also, but we can post a link to what sets are available in what format. But generally, the older cards, the ones that don't have the
white border.
The ones that don't have the colored symbol. The gold, the silver, and the black. A lot of those are Legacy only for sure. Yeah.
Okay, we're already at 10.
And number 10.
Big one for us: long-term financial investment.
Right. So the cards that you purchase today, especially the dual lands, the Legacy staple cards, the reserve list cards that are in Legacy decks. Those have been increasing in price year over year for the last 20 plus years. I know back in 2003, dual lands were $20-something, and now most of them are $300, $400, $500 and up.
Yeah.
So it might look daunting, but This is a collectible card trading game. Um, so you can kind of look at it like that too. There's a group of investment players that give all sorts of investment advice. But a lot of the cards, they hold their value or go up.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah, so you can look at it like that as well if you're looking to diversify.
Yeah.
We're not financial advisors.
No. Well, it's just, here's something fun to play with, and, this has, a value. So if you buy a card for $20 today, it'll probably be $20 tomorrow, if not more. And so that's, kind of nice. People invest in gold or coins or all sorts of stuff, and then, you can invest in magic cards. You can have fun, it's something fun to play, and it's a financial investment. I think people, should, I don't know, it's both. It's fun that you can play with your financial investment, and that it has pretty art, and I think it's very secure market from what you've told me, as opposed to other things. How would you compare it financially to Pokemon?
I don't know. There's a lot of cards that are super valuable. There seems to be like a wider variety of cards that are more expensive in Magic.
Than Pokemon.
And it is a little bit older as well. So while there might be, the base set first edition, there's similar things in Magic the Gathering, like, Alpha Beta, Black Lotuses. And, the people grade the cards.
Yeah.
People.
And grading is
collect.
like where it's like a A+.
Well, they grade them on a numerical scale.
Oh yeah, like 9.8.
They check the corners and the edges.
Which is why, if you want to treat this like a financial investment, you better be taking good care of them.
Right, and then there's, aside from Legacy, there's a avid sealed box, booster box community, and they collect old boxes and just hold on to them. So yeah, it is pretty similar to Pokemon, but yeah, that's kind of our list.
In conclusion.
Yeah, so if you're looking to play Magic the Gathering on the long term, if you're looking to build relationships with the community locally, both online and online.
Oh, I didn't ask that one. If I wanted to play with other people, is there a viable in local, playing face to face with Legacy versus the other formats?
Yeah, you on the East Coast and West Coast, and in some larger cities for sure. But if you're looking to play Legacy tournaments, generally you need about 8 people. At your local card store, just ask whoever's working there, the owner or the employees, if they could host a tournament for you and put up prize support. That's kind of what we did here in our town for so long. We would just show up with 8, 10, 12 people and be like, hey, host a tournament. And maybe they'd put it on the schedule for you, so just ask around. And a lot of, I guess there's Facebook groups for Magic the Gathering and for your city. That might be a good place to ask around and see who plays.
Yeah, because of all these formats that you mentioned, it seems like Legacy has a pretty strong community for in-person tournaments.
Well, you just got to know who to ask. Who to look
for. You got to find them.
Yeah, find them. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking to play long-term, build relationships with the community, if you're looking to help evolve and adapt to the format, if you're looking to be unique, if you're looking to specialize, or if you're looking to master all the decks in the format, Legacy is for you.